It's become clear over the course of the history of this YouTube channel that we are appreciators of the art of shit talking. Right? I realized we were just talking about, maybe when you shouldn't be shit talking, maybe when you shouldn't be talking a lot of trash, but there was one of the greatest shit talking performances in recent living memory, and it came from one of the most random sources that I can remember. This is the Noni Madueke saga, and the impact, the cultural resonance, the legacy of what Noni Madueke has managed to do. Because let me be clear, one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest complaints that people have about modern football relative to what we had even 10, 15 years ago are there's not as many characters, right? The way the game is built now, you have to be in such ridiculous shape to play it with the pressing and the gegen pressing and the different traps that people run all over the sort of the field and the constricting of space. You have to be in such unbelievable shape in terms of your speed and your work rate that it reduces, in my opinion, the fun part of the game, right? The creativity, the flair, the personality. And one of those big complaints that people have in modern football is that there are not enough characters, right? There are look, sports are the best reality television on the planet, right? We have no idea what's going to happen. There's incredible amounts of emotional investment, borderline unreasonable amounts of emotional investment. But the motivating factor, it's the stories behind what's going on, right? In 10, 15 years ago, there were so many more players with their unique personalities that were shining through that you and I could understand, and you either liked or you didn't like. I mean, even down to somebody like Mesut Ozil, right? These players that were artists, but also antagonists, right? In their own show. They were the villain or the hero, and oftentimes they were both. Noni Madueke has presented us with an opportunity to create heroes and villains again. Okay, so like Noni Madueke has decided it's almost like he made some sort of conscious decision to just spice things up. Like a normal Premier League match between Chelsea and Wolves was not exciting enough for Noni Madueke, and so he just salt baited up a little bit, sprinkled a little something on top because he needed to feel something again. Because he posted on Instagram this: everything about this place is shit. Tags Wolverhampton. Right? Chelsea is playing at Wolves, and Noni Madueke just decides to throw this up on Instagram. Just imagine the thought process in general behind that. I mean, I mean, I can't imagine. If you'd asked me if a Premier League footballer was ever going to tweet this, I would have said no. And then maybe I would have said yes, maybe Neil, maybe Jamie Vardy, right? Like one of those two guys, right? But we saw Jamie Vardy's performance in week one. A lightning rod, a character, somebody that you could get behind, somebody that you would watch and be incredibly interested in. That's Jamie Vardy. He was all over Tottenham like white on rice, right? He was unstoppable shit talking. Not only did he beat Tottenham, he made it feel like they would never be able to beat him, even if they beat him on the field. Well, Noni Madueke has taken that to this natural next level where he's not even bragging about anything he's accomplished or anything else. He's just decided to shit all over the town, right? And now we've got this Herculean battle between Noni Madueke in the town of Wolverhampton. And of course, it started pretty interestingly. Nicholas Jackson scored in the second minute. Mateus Cunha with the equalizer. Chelsea scores. Cole Palmer, and then Wolves equalizes again. It's 2-2. Right? Noni Madueke has been on the field for the entire first half. He hasn't managed to do anything. The match is 2-2, so it's already a great burgeoning match. It's a very exciting match to be watching. Right? But Noni Madueke, he's had a couple of shots, whatever, but he hasn't managed to score a goal yet. And then the second half starts. Right? And Noni Madueke goes from kind of in the Neil category of needless shitstir to this Jamie Vardy category of talking shit and backing it up. Because Noni Madueke drops not one, not two, but three goals in the first 18 minutes of the second half to go from 2-2 to 5-2. Cole Palmer assists all three of them, by the way. It just feels like should point that out. Noni Madueke would say after the game that he's like ice and he's like fire and Cole Palmer's like ice. So now we've got this whole ice and fire and Game of Thrones type shit going on. But Chelsea would score one more goal. Noni Madueke didn't score it. obviously, or I would have mentioned that already. But they went on to win the match 6-2. This is Noni Madueke's first Premier League hat trick, and it is just, I feel like this is just the most Chelsea stat of all time. It is the 23rd different player. He is the 23rd different player to score a Premier League hat trick for Chelsea, which is the most of any club. That is just like the most Chelsea stat I've ever heard. Not even close, honestly. That just really sums up the kind of turnover but success that Chelsea's been able to have. Arsenal, weirdly, is at 22, and then no other team, you can see it, no other team's over 16. Shout out to Everton for being tied with Manchester United on that list, by the way. So those Everton fans that think their team is terrible and is never going to be good again, I got something for you, right? There's something behind that. But in the reaction to the game, I came to discover that perhaps Noni Madueke did not do this on purpose, or he was attempting to cover his ass afterwards because you got to make sure your PR team's out there so that your players aren't calling everywhere that they play shit. But Noni Madueke's response, this according to the BBC, was, "I just want to apologize to everyone that I might have offended. It was a human mistake, an accident. It wasn't meant to be on my socials like that. I'm sure Wolverhampton is a nice town, and I'm sorry." I love that. I'm sure Wolverhampton's a nice town. Not that, oh, I spent more time there and I enjoyed it, just like everything I saw in Wolves was shit, but I'm sure it's a nice town. I just didn't see the right part of it. Like that, he's just kind of a backhanded apology. But what this means, right, is people like Noni Madueke, right, or even myself, right, you have your Instagram and then you have your close friends on Instagram, right? And so you have a close friends story, right, where you can post to the few people that you're really tight with, and then you have your full Instagram story. And what I read this and instantly believed happened is that Noni Madueke was attempting to post this on his close friends story for like 25 of his best friends, and accidentally launched it to his 1 million Instagram followers instead. It was a mistake. You learn from those things, and hopefully nothing like that happens again. Right? Like, okay, I got to be very, very careful about making sure that I actually post this stuff on my close friends story instead of actually on the main story. But what I hope is the case is that this is just Chelsea doing PR work behind the scenes. That is what I hope happened. Because I want to live in a world where a player stirs the pot like this. Right? I want to live in the world that Noni Madueke decided to just spice up life for no other reason than he felt a little bored, and it motivated him to score a hat trick in the match, and now he looks like the biggest baller of all time. Because the alternative story is just a little more dweeby, and I don't think it's as cool. Now, obviously, there's got to be a line in here, right? You don't want players just running around degrading every town that they happen to be playing in. But a little bit of this sauce, a little bit of this drama, a little bit of this kind of crazy intensity. Now, that's the sort of thing that I can get behind. This creates stories. Noni Madueke now stands out in a locker room of 64 players at Chelsea as this guy that is the lightning rod. He's the guy that's going to mix it up. He's the guy that's going to talk a little trash. He's the guy for the rest of his career that's going to be booed by any self-respecting Wolves fan. And that's fun. That's in the sports banter category for me. And that's firmly entrenched, and I love it. And hell, maybe he should do this sort of thing more often because it's not like Noni Madueke's been scoring piles and piles of goals. This clearly fired him up a little bit for this match, but that's the entire Noni Madueke story. If you felt like you were out of the loop and had no idea what was going on, there you go. I got to go get a haircut is what I'm going to do now. And then Football Manager World Cup stuff. So, bye.